I had an extraordinary phone interview with one of the human experiencers in my third book, Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 2, High Strangeness. This book was published in 1998, and I know firsthand how many valuable military, intelligence, and human abduction testimonies are in it. And the recent phone call came from one of half a dozen people featured in this volume 2 who contacted me in the 1990 to 1993 time period, each with similar descriptions of seeing all kinds of humanoid bodies preserved in thousands of tubes of light in a vast room, city blocks long. And the overseers of these tubes, in which there's light at the top and the bottom, preserving the bodies inside, were non-humans that ranged from tall, green, 8-foot-tall praying mantis type insects to 7 to 8 feet tall, blonde-haired, very white-skinned humanoids with pale blue cat eyes, or gold cat eyes that have thin, vertical, dark pupils in tall humanoids who have long black hair, or 8-foot-tall, very thin humanoids with very large beaked noses wearing tight skull caps that have curves down on the forehead, all working together with gray-skinned, large-headed, big black-eyed beings that range from 3 feet to 5 feet tall. And you can find all those experiences and the illustrations in my Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 2, High Strangeness. And the chapter is called Body Containers and Souls of Light. And what I'm going to share with you tonight comes from the abductee in this book called Arrawana Lawson, not her real name. But now in March of 2020, she has asked me to use her real name and her real background for the first time on public record, because she is now 82 years old in a nursing home in California, and she does not think that her human life on this planet has much time left. Her real name is Arrawana Allen, born August 16, 1937 in New Jersey. Twice divorced, with a 20-year-old daughter and 2 other young children, Arrawana worked in the Atlantic City Office of Affirmative Action and the Department of Health and Human Services for 30 years. She has always wanted and liked to help people, and she loved working in the city government, helping people in New Jersey. She has also long known that there are other intelligences from somewhere else in this universe that interact with Earth Homo sapien, including herself and her family. But when Arrawana originally talked to me beginning in 1992 for my 2-volume book, she felt that she had to remain anonymous in order to maintain her Atlantic City government work. Now has come a revelation only 9 weeks ago at the end of December 2019 that brings us full circle back to the alien resurrection technology from our work 28 years ago. It all started for Arrawana and her family on Thanksgiving week, 1983. She and her oldest daughter and son-in-law and her other children had driven in 2 cars to be with relatives in Louisville, Kentucky for that holiday. On their November 27th, 1983 return to Atlantic City via the Pennsylvania Turnpike, they had stopped both cars for gas several miles west of Harrisburg. Back in the cars headed east toward New Jersey, a strange light appeared in the sky that Arrawana explained to her daughter, "I think that's foxfire." The next thing that they all knew was they were in another car rest area, but now it was in New Jersey, on the New Jersey Turnpike, many miles east. and the gas gauge in each of the two cars was full. They all had missing time, which haunted Arrawana. She wanted to remember what happened after the Foxfire light in the sky back in Pennsylvania. And that led her to do hypnosis and eventually recorded in-depth discussions with me, and she provided me illustrations. Hypnosis revealed that after stopping for gas west of Harrisburg, both cars ended up inside a very large craft that glowed with a pinkish red color on the interior. Small gray beings got all the family out of both cars, and a tall male humanoid with a very large beaked nose and skull cap greeted them. Everyone was separated, and Arrawana recalled being taken into a bright room that reminded her of a hospital room, where she was put on an exam table. And then Arrawana was in front of, quote, as she describes, a tall American Indian type. His skin was gray, pale, no pigmentation whatsoever, pearlescent, translucent. He had high cheekbones, a hooked nose, black hair that was longer than normal. His eyes were wide-set, solid black eyes, but those were shields of some kind, she saw. Later on, he took them off, and Arrawana could see gold eyes like a cat's underneath. He and the other tall beings wore a patch on their leotard uniforms of two overlapping triangles in a circle. The triangles were open at each end, which signified, Arrawana heard telepathically, quote, the merging of two worlds. He never explained to Arrawana which worlds or why. The tall male put his hand on short Arrawana's shoulder, and she felt immediate calm along with a sense of deep and close intimacy with him, as if he were her mate. He took Arrawana to a huge room, city blocks long, she said, where walls were lined with thousands of clear cylinder-shaped tubes, about 2 feet wide and 8 feet tall, in which light shone from the top and the bottom, highlighting a great variety of humanoid bodies inside each tube. He took Arrawana in front of one particular tube filled with an 8-foot-tall body of a female with black, wavy hair and almond-shaped eyes that was not human. The skin, again, pearlescent, almost glowing, white-gray skin like his. And the tall male being, also with long black hair, telepathically transferred thought words into Arrawana's mind. This is your body. Arrawana had not seen those very tall, white-skinned, black-haired, cat-eyed beings since her family's abduction on November 27th of 1983, until 3 months ago. Arrawana Allen.
And I had not been taking my water pills due to the fact that I had a very...
southeast of Los Angeles, where she still tries every day to help her fellow retirees. And every day she is supposed to take diuretic medicine to flush her body of excess water. She did not know how bad the consequence could be if she skipped her medicine until December 9th, 2019, at 11:30 p.m. Pacific in a Salton Sea Region nursing home.
And I had not been taking my water pills due to the fact that I had a very busy schedule and didn't want to have to urinate very often, which is what would happen if I had taken those water pills. So I didn't take the water pills, not knowing that the result of not taking the pills would result in my lungs filling up with water, prohibiting me from breathing. I was in my reclining chair, and all of a sudden I found it very hard to breathe. I managed to stand up because I knew I had to get help. And it was just extremely hard to move. But I forced myself to pull the string for help. When I sat back down in the chair, I stopped breathing. And I knew I was dying. And I actually died. For a moment, it was just completely black. It's dark. And then the next thing I know, I was surrounded by bright light. And it was my mind with no body in this light. And the next thing I know, I saw the tube. And there was a body in the tube, a woman's body. And she was standing with her head slightly bent, slumped. And I knew I had seen that body before. I knew that I had occupied that body before. As a matter of fact, I knew it was my body. And it was waiting for me to enter it.
Why do you think you ended up in front of the tube with the tall female?
The only thing I could think of is that I was going home. I was going back to who I originally was. That's exactly what will happen to me. I will go back to who I originally was.
So what brought you back?
Electric shock treatment. I don't know. Whatever they did to bring me back. But just before I could enter it, all of a sudden I was snapped back into the darkness. And then the next thing I knew, I woke up in the hospital. And I had been in a coma for maybe a day or so. And here I was alive again.
How did you get in front of her in the tube?
When I found myself in the blackness and realized all I had was my thinking mind, there was no body. It was just my mind. For lack of a better word, the soul. And I was only there for a fraction of a second. I wasn't there long. And then I found myself in this bright light. Then within a second, there was the body in the tube.
Explain why the body in the tube is so significant for you.
When my family and I were abducted, the experience that you wrote about in your book, Glimpses of Other Realities, High Strangeness, I saw a room full of bodies in a tube, a very large room. And a male alien took me to one particular tube. And he told me it was my body and asked if I wanted to enter it. And I did enter it. So I was familiar with that tube. I was familiar with that body.
Why were you in the body that you have now for this life?
To live the life of a human being, being a human is a wonderful thing. I love being me.
Right. Why do you think that you would ever have left him, left the tall whites, to come to Earth and have a life in a smaller black body?
Well, Linda, I think that what's going on is an evaluation of humanity. I know my daughter once asked me, Mom, if you had to decide if humanity should continue to exist, what would you say? And I paused for a second and I looked at her and I said, I'd say that they should continue to exist. And she said, why? And I had to tell her, if you wanted to see humanity at its very best, you create a catastrophe. During a catastrophe, people that don't even know each other will risk their lives and even die trying to save someone else. And right now, we've had so many during my lifetime. I've gotten to experience man at his very best. And I don't think humanity has anything to worry about. I think they'll be around a long time.
And it might relate to the part of us that cycles in and out of containers, perhaps for infinity, that we call the soul.
Yes.